It claws at your throat. The feeling that your very best is never enough, is it? This isn't just some fluffy pronouncement about kindness. It's a descent into the shadowed corridors of the soul, a revelation uncovered by Carl Jung, who mapped the labyrinth of the human spirit for decades. If you've ever tasted the bitter ash of betrayal, when your generosity is spat back in your face, when your nobility is mistaken for spinelessness, when the more you pour out, the emptier you become, prepare to understand why, prepare for the revelation. Jung, with his surgeon's eye for the human condition, saw a pattern, a disturbing echo in the lives of his patients. Those clinging hardest to the notion of their own flawless goodness, they were often drowning in silent suffering. But what twisted definition of good has ensnared us all? Our modern world has conjured a grotesque caricature of goodness, the perpetually available, the eternally agreeable, the unhesitating forgiver, the selfless martyr who collapses into nothingness for others. Jung saw through this shimmering facade. This wasn't just misguided, it was lethal. Because when we equate kindness with self-immolation, when we mistake love for the demolition of boundaries, we become architects of our own slow demise, brick by agonizing brick. Jung unearthed a truth that chills to the bone. The more desperately we chase an impossible ideal of perfect goodness, the more monstrous our shadow grows, that repressed, denied, buried self. It's like trying to force a beach ball under the waves. The harder you shove, the more violently it will explode back. Imagine your kindness as a searing beam of light, illuminating all around you. Society screams that to keep that light blazing, you must extinguish everything else: your fury, your desires, your limits. A lie, a pernicious lie that Jung exposed. True kindness doesn't spring from amputating pieces of ourselves. It ignites when we embrace the totality of who we are, shadow and light intertwined. How many times has that inner voice whispered a desperate "enough," only to be silenced, condemned because a good person wouldn't dare think such a thing? How often have you entombed your rage, your frustration, your aching pain, convinced these ugly emotions diminish your worthiness? Each time you disown a piece of yourself, you don't ascend to some higher plane. You shatter further. You fracture. This isn't a call to abandon kindness. No, it's a thunderous awakening from naive, self-destructive generosity, a call to forge kindness into something resilient, profound, utterly terrifyingly complete. Because true kindness isn't the absence of darkness. It's the alchemical dance of integrating every facet of our being into a unified whole. What you're about to confront may detonate the bedrock of everything you thought you understood about goodness. Prepare for a challenge to long-held beliefs about love, sacrifice, authenticity. But if you dare to listen, if you permit yourself to question what you've always swallowed whole, you'll discover a liberating truth. True kindness doesn't cripple you. It empowers you. It doesn't drain you. It replenishes you. It doesn't diminish you. It completes you. This is the stark, unsanitized wisdom Jung bequeathed to us. To achieve genuine goodness, we must first achieve genuine wholeness. And that odyssey begins by staring unflinchingly into the shadows we've labored so relentlessly to deny. When Jung spoke of the shadow, he wasn't dabbling in abstract symbolism. He was identifying a raw, pulsing psychological force dwelling within each of us, a part we are trained to fear, suppress, and disown. It's the vault where we lock away what we deem unacceptable, our explosive anger, our ravenous desires, our undeniable right to refuse, our desperate need to be seen, to be acknowledged. For those who pride themselves on their inherent kindness, the shadow becomes a monstrous labyrinth. Their very identity is built on being the light, the constant helper, the unfailing support, the unwavering presence. The mere thought of harboring a dark side fills them with paralyzing dread, as if admitting its existence would obliterate everything they believe themselves to be. But this denial comes with a blood price, a price etched on the soul. When we banish our shadow, when we feign its non-existence, it festers, it metastasizes, it gathers unholy power. It's like trying to dam a raging river with bare hands. Inevitably, the dam will shatter, unleashing chaos. Repressed energy doesn't vanish into thin air. It contorts. It mutates. It erupts in unpredictable, uncontrollable ways. The overly kind manifests this in subtle yet devastating forms. It surfaces as simmering resentment after aiding someone who never reciprocates. It simmers as silent rage when others trespass on invisible boundaries. It chills as profound desolation when they realize no one truly acknowledges their own gnawing needs. The more feverishly we strive for perfect goodness, the more vulnerable we become to our own shadow's insidious machinations. A cruel paradox indeed. Deny your fury, and you become a master of passive aggression, wielding veiled barbs and subtle sabotage. Reject your hunger for recognition, and you become a subtle manipulator, orchestrating scenarios where praise is unsolicited. Pretend you require nothing, and you transform into an emotional vampire, unconsciously leeching energy from those around you. According to Jung, the shadow isn't our nemesis. It's a vital organ in our inner ecosystem. It shelters not only our perceived negative traits, but also our unclaimed power, our capacity to erect healthy boundaries, to champion ourselves when necessary, to roar. When we disown the shadow, we forfeit not only our darkness, but also a portion of our very light. Picture someone who has devoted their entire existence to being the good one. They were taught that anger is inherently evil, that setting limits is selfish, that their needs must always come last, sacrificed on the altar of others' comfort. This person doesn't merely suppress their fury, they smother their personal agency, their ability to refuse, their undeniable right to occupy space in the world. Their kindness becomes a gilded cage of their own making. Jung understood this isn't authentic kindness. It's fear garbed in the costume of virtue, fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of never measuring up. Genuinely kind people aren't those who never experience anger or never enforce limits. They are those who have learned to orchestrate a symphony of all their parts into a coherent, powerful whole. The shadow, once acknowledged and embraced, transforms into a wellspring of untapped strength. It's akin to a hidden, overgrown garden. If we dare to venture within, we'll unearth not just our deepest terrors, but also our most potent abilities. That's where naive kindness undergoes a metamorphosis into conscious, discerning wisdom. For Jung, true spiritual evolution isn't about obliterating the shadow. It's about mastering the dance with it. It means recognizing that our capacity for rage is as sacred as our capacity for love, that our boundaries are as crucial as our generosity, that our hunger for acknowledgement is as valid as our desire to give. This is the pivotal first step on the path to a more genuine and formidable kindness. Realizing that the shadow isn't your enemy, but a long-neglected aspect of yourself, yearning to be seen, embraced, honored. And when you finally summon the courage to meet its gaze, you may discover that what you feared most intensely holds the very key to your wholeness. It holds your truest power. Blind kindness extracts a heavy toll, a toll exacted not just in emotional exhaustion, but in stunted dreams, unbalanced relationships, and a life only partially lived. It manifests as the perpetual fatigue of those who give without ceasing, the silent frustration of those who perpetually bury their own needs, and the crushing loneliness of those surrounded by people who never truly see them. Consider someone who has elevated self-sacrifice to the level of identity. This individual forfeits not only their time and energy, they sacrifice fundamental pieces of their very essence. Each time they disregard their own needs for the sake of others. Each time they muzzle their voice to preserve a false peace. Each time they utter yes while their soul screams a resounding no, they are paying with fragments of their own being. The modern martyr doesn't bear a visible crown of thorns. Their suffering manifests as sleepless nights fretting over the problems of others, as relationships where they perpetually give more than they receive, as a schedule so crammed with obligations to others that no space remains for themselves. It's a way of life that society not only tolerates, but even lauds, oblivious to the profound self-neglect festering beneath the veneer of nobility. Jung observed that this pattern of self-sacrifice often takes root in the fertile ground of childhood. Perhaps you were the child who had to be perpetually good to maintain peace within a turbulent family. Perhaps you internalized the insidious belief that your worth was contingent on how much you could do for others. These early lessons become invisible chains, binding us to self-destructive behaviors. The relationships of someone who practices blind kindness adhere to a predictable script. They become everyone's confidant, the ever-available shoulder to cry on, the unwavering source of support. But when they desperately need help, they are met with an unsettling, echoing emptiness. People become so accustomed to receiving from them that it never even crosses their minds to offer anything in return. It's a unique, agonizing form of isolation, being surrounded by people who know your kindness but not your heart. The exhaustion of constant giving isn't merely physical. It's a soul-deep weariness that depletes not only energy but also the very joy of existence. It's akin to a gradual spiritual starvation where the individual slowly loses touch with their own dreams, their own desires, their own fundamental needs. They devolve into an empty vessel, existing solely to fulfill the needs of others, a puppet dancing to the tune of external demands. This imbalance cultivates a toxic dynamic where the perpetually kind person becomes increasingly indispensable to others while simultaneously becoming increasingly invisible to themselves. It's a form of codependency masquerading as virtue. But in truth, it's a self-imposed prison, constructed with the bricks of good intentions and cemented with the mortar of unmet needs. This person becomes a mere resource to others, steadily forfeiting their own humanity. The cruel irony is that this excessive kindness doesn't merely wound the one practicing it, it also harms those it's intended to help. By perpetually rescuing others, by always being available, by never allowing them to grapple with the consequences of their own actions, the chronically kind person stunts the growth of those they're trying to save. This pattern of behavior doesn't just drain you, it breeds simmering resentment. The resentment of someone who poured everything out and received nothing in return. Of someone who was there for everyone, yet finds themselves utterly alone when they desperately need support. And when that resentment is entombed beneath layers of forced kindness, it becomes a slow-acting poison, seeping into every relationship, contaminating the well. This is the brutal truth of blind kindness. We sacrifice not only our energy, our time, our peace of mind, we sever the connection to our true essence, to our deepest desires, to our ability to erect healthy boundaries. We become diluted, pale imitations of ourselves, existing primarily in service to the needs of others. Integrating the shadow is not a smooth, comfortable endeavor. It's a harrowing journey that demands courage, brutal honesty, and the unwavering willingness to confront what we've spent a lifetime avoiding. It's like flicking on a light in a chamber that has been plunged in darkness for decades. Initially, what we see may be deeply unsettling, even terrifying, but only by seeing with clarity can we begin to restore order and instigate true transformation. This process ignites with the acknowledgement that our excessive kindness has often been a subtle form of evasion. We evade conflict, we evade rejection, we evade the possibility of being judged, of being criticized, of not being loved. Behind every act of excessive kindness lurks a primal fear, the fear of not being loved for who we truly are, flaws and all. Transformation demands a unique brand of bravery. We must steel ourselves to disappoint those who have grown accustomed to our unconditional availability. It's like rewriting an invisible contract we've upheld with the world for years, a contract etched in unspoken expectations. The silent agreement has been, I will be everything you need, and in return, you will love me, you will validate me. But now the new contract declares, I will be authentic, even if that means I won't always please you, even if it means you may turn away. Integrating the shadow doesn't equate to becoming cruel or indifferent or callous. On the contrary, it births a kindness that is infinitely more potent and authentic. It's the stark difference between a feeble flame that any breeze can extinguish and a roaring fire that radiates warmth and light without being consumed. A fire that knows its own boundaries. True integration blooms when we recognize that our capacity to erect boundaries is as sacred as our capacity to give, as crucial as our capacity to love. The power that emanates from this integration is fundamentally different from the insidious force of cruelty. Cruelty is born from fear, from weakness, from the desperate need to dominate, to control, to diminish others. True power, the kind forged in the crucible of shadow integration, springs from self-acceptance, from the ability to stand unflinchingly in our own truth without the compulsion to overpower or diminish others. The discerning kindness that blossoms from this journey is akin to a tree with roots that plunge deep into the earth. It doesn't require proving its strength by tearing others down. It doesn't need to diminish others to elevate itself. Its power manifests in its steadiness, in offering shelter when it is right to do so, and in maintaining its natural boundaries without apology for occupying space in the world. Those who attain this integration uncover a beautiful, liberating paradox. The more profoundly they embrace their own darkness, the more genuinely, authentically kind they become. They no longer give out of compulsion or fear, but from a conscious, deliberate choice, from a desire to share their own abundance. Their generosity surges forth from abundance, not from emptiness. Their compassion stems from strength, not from weakness. This new way of being demands a sustained commitment to authenticity, a willingness to stand in truth. It means acknowledging that sometimes we will experience rage, and that this rage can serve as a vital compass, pointing us toward the precise locations where our limits have been transgressed. It means accepting that sometimes we will need to utter no, and that this no can be as sacred as any yes we have ever offered, a shield protecting our very soul. Integration also entails acknowledging that not all our shadow aspects are inherently negative, that they aren't inherently evil. Within that shadowed realm we once feared lie our most potent gifts, our discerning intuition about the intentions of others, our fierce capacity to protect what we hold sacred, our ability to discern truth from lies. The discerning kindness that stems from integration possesses razor-sharp intuition. It knows instinctively when to give and when to withhold, when to draw closer and when to maintain a respectful distance. It's not a kindness that spills forth aimlessly, but one that flows with intention, with purpose, with unwavering awareness. It's a kindness that honors both the giver and the receiver, that recognizes healthy boundaries as a fundamental form of mutual respect, a recognition of our shared humanity. This transformation empowers us to navigate the world in an entirely new way. We are no longer the candle that burns itself to oblivion to illuminate the paths of others, a self-sacrificing offering. We become the lighthouse, radiating our own unwavering light, guiding others without self-depletion, without surrendering our own essence. Our kindness becomes infinitely more potent, precisely because we no longer crave the approval or love of everyone around us. The true integration of the shadow empowers us to be kind, not out of fear of being something else, but because we deliberately choose to be kind, because we desire to share our fullness. It's a kindness that encompasses our strength, our limits, our ability to refuse, our willingness to disappoint when necessary. A kindness rooted in honesty. At its core, it is a kindness born not from fear, but from truth. The establishment of healthy boundaries is a practice Jung deemed essential to psychological well-being, a shield protecting our very soul. Yet, for those who have built their identity on the foundation of endless kindness, setting limits can feel like a betrayal of their innermost nature, a violation of a deeply ingrained sense of self. This is where ancient wisdom becomes especially relevant, a guiding light in the darkness. Boundaries are not walls erected to sever us from others, to divide and isolate. They are sacred lines defining where we end and where others begin, a recognition of our individual sovereignty. The capacity to establish boundaries ignites with a revolutionary act, recognizing our inherent worth, recognizing the inherent value of our soul. Not worth predicated on what we give or what we do for others, but the intrinsic value that exists simply because we are, because we breathe, because we exist. This recognition isn't selfish, it isn't egotistical, it isn't arrogant. It's a fundamental act of psychological honesty, a declaration of our own value. When we begin to truly value ourselves, a new paradigm of relating to the world unfolds, a way of interacting in the truest, most authentic form. We no longer feel compelled to earn our right to exist through excessive goodness, through the constant validation of external approval. We begin to understand that reciprocity in relationships isn't a luxury. It isn't a privilege. It isn't an added bonus. It is a fundamental psychological necessity, a lifeline sustaining our very essence. Healthy relationships are those in which giving and receiving flow in harmonious balance, a symbiotic dance of mutual respect and shared humanity. This understanding transforms the way we interact with others, the way we engage in the world. We begin to realize that when we permit others to repeatedly transgress our boundaries, we not only inflict harm upon ourselves, we also prevent them from learning to respect personal limits, from developing a fundamental understanding of boundaries. Genuine kindness encompasses the strength to uphold clear boundaries, because these boundaries safeguard both our ability to give and the dignity of those who receive, a recognition of the value of both parties. Individuals who learn to establish healthy boundaries encounter a fascinating paradox. Their relationships, though fewer in number, become infinitely more meaningful, infinitely more fulfilling. Some may drift away when we are no longer unconditionally available, when we no longer surrender our own needs to satisfy theirs. But those who remain will be the ones who truly respect and value us as whole beings, who value our soul, our very essence. The practice of establishing boundaries necessitates developing a new emotional vocabulary, a language of honesty and self-respect. We begin to discern the subtle difference between authentic guilt, stemming from genuine wrongdoing, and manipulated guilt, wielded as a weapon to control us. We begin to distinguish between true responsibility and the burdens we have wrongly shouldered, the weights we have mistakenly carried. This process also entails acknowledging that our time, our energy, and our emotional resources are both limited and sacred, precious and irreplaceable. We cannot draw from an empty well a depleted source. And maintaining our boundaries is how we ensure we always have something to offer when it is genuinely needed and genuinely appropriate, a sustainable offering. The true protection of our kindness doesn't stem from constructing walls of isolation, but from cultivating wise discernment about where, when, and with whom we share our gifts, a recognition of the value of our own essence. It's akin to tending a delicate garden, nurturing and protecting it. It demands both clear borders, delineating what belongs and what doesn't, and constant care, tending to the needs of each individual plant to ensure it flourishes. When we safeguard our energy and resources properly, our capacity to be genuinely, authentically kind grows stronger, not weaker, a sustainable kindness that nourishes both giver and receiver. The alchemy of transformation is a profound process that begins when we finally permit our light and our shadow to dance together in harmonious unity. It's like witnessing two distinct streams merging to create something entirely new, something infinitely more powerful. Neither purely light nor purely dark, but a new kind of power forged from conscious integration, a wholeness born from embracing all aspects of our being. This alchemical journey commences when we cease warring against our own dual nature, when we accept the totality of who we are. Jung discovered that true transformation doesn't occur by attempting to eradicate our darker aspects, but by allowing them to teach us what we desperately need to learn, to illuminate the hidden pathways of our soul. Our anger illuminates where we need to establish boundaries, protecting our inner sanctuary. Our resentment points to where we have been giving too much, depleting our own wellspring of essence. Our sadness reveals where more tender care is needed, nurturing the wounded parts of our soul. And authentic strength emerges from this integration like gold purified through the alchemical fire of self-awareness, a refined power forged in the crucible of self-acceptance. It is no longer the brute force of uncontrolled aggression, nor the insidious weakness disguised as endless kindness, but a nuanced, refined power, a balanced force, one that knows instinctively when to advance and when to retreat, when to give and when to conserve, when to speak and when to remain silent, a wisdom born from wholeness. Individuals who attain this integration develop a particular presence, an aura of authenticity. They don't feel compelled to prove their goodness or their power. They don't seek external validation for their existence. They simply are. They simply exist in their truest, most authentic form. Their authenticity becomes their shield, protecting them from the insidious forces of manipulation and control, and their truth becomes their sword, cutting through the illusions and deceptions of the world. They have learned that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in mastering themselves, in taming their own inner landscape. The wisdom that stems from this transformation is akin to a controlled flame, a manageable source of power. It can warm and nourish, offering comfort and guidance, or it can burn with righteous fire, defending what is sacred depending on how it is wielded. Those who attain this state understand that their power isn't intended for domination, but for the protection of what is sacred, including their own essence, their own soul. They have learned that kindness devoid of discernment is as perilous as power devoid of compassion, a delicate balance maintained through constant awareness. This new way of being in the world demands constant vigilance, not born from fear, but from an awakened awareness, from a conscious choice to engage authentically. It's akin to tending a balanced garden, nurturing each element to create a harmonious ecosystem. Some plants crave more sunlight, while others thrive in the shade, and the wise gardener understands that both are essential for a healthy, flourishing ecosystem. In the same vein, we learn to nourish both our light and our shadow, understanding that both are fundamental to our wholeness, to our authenticity. The kindness that stems from this alchemy is a conscious choice, a deliberate action, not a compulsion born from fear or guilt, a liberating force. It's a kindness that recognizes its own worth, that doesn't feel compelled to constantly prove itself, that can utter no without remorse, and yes without resentment. A kindness born from self-respect. It's a kindness that has made peace with its own shadow, and therefore doesn't fear the darkness in others. An empathy born from understanding. This transformation is an ongoing process, not a fixed destination, a dynamic journey. It's an eternal dance between light and shadow, power and compassion, giving and receiving, a continuous cycle of growth and refinement. Each day presents us with new opportunities to refine this balance, to consciously choose how to wield our power to be kind from a place of strength rather than fear, a mindful engagement. This personal alchemy generates a ripple effect in the world around us, a force that spreads outward. When we permit ourselves to be whole, we grant others implicit permission to do the same, an act of liberation. When we demonstrate that it's possible to be both strong and kind, both powerful and compassionate, we create a new model of what it means to be authentically human, a beacon of possibility. The final transformation guides us to a realm where we understand that genuine kindness isn't a straitjacket that confines us, but a power that liberates us, a key unlocking our potential. It's not a mask we wear to gain acceptance, but an authentic expression of who we truly are, a testament to our inner truth. It's a state of being where our power and our compassion emanate from the same wellspring, a unified force, where our light and our shadow collaborate to create something greater than the sum of their individual parts, a synergy of wholeness. The journey we've explored through Jung's wisdom isn't merely a collection of abstract ideas. It isn't a theoretical exercise. It's an invitation to profound transformation, a call to action. A transformation that commences the moment we embrace the understanding that our kindness doesn't need to be flawless to be meaningful, that our power doesn't need to be feared to be respected, and that our wholeness encompasses both light and shadow, a unified force. Jung has unveiled to us that the pathway to a more authentic and potent life doesn't lie in denying our dual nature, but in consciously embracing it, in acknowledging the complexity of our being. When we integrate our shadow, when we permit our power and our kindness to coexist in harmony, we become more complete, more capable of creating the life we genuinely desire, a life aligned with our truest self. Now, the invitation beckons us to take the next step, to gaze inward and ask ourselves, what aspects of myself have I been denying in the name of being good? What power have I been suppressing out of fear of being less accepted? What boundaries have I been avoiding for fear of disappointing others, of being rejected? This is the moment to remember this. Your kindness is not contingent on your perfection. It is not diminished by your imperfections. Your worth is not defined by how much you give or how much you sacrifice. It is inherent and unwavering. Your power does not diminish your capacity to love. It amplifies your ability to be a force of good. And your boundaries do not make you any less deserving of love. They affirm your self-worth. The transformation Jung invites us to undertake is not a fixed destination. It is not a final state to be achieved. It's an ongoing journey, a dynamic process of self-discovery and growth. Each day presents us with fresh opportunities to choose authenticity over people-pleasing, conscious power over weakness disguised as virtue, genuine kindness over automatic self-sacrifice, a conscious choice to align with our truest self. The world yearns for individuals who have integrated both their light and their shadow, who comprehend that true goodness doesn't stem from repression, but from conscious integration, a wholeness born from embracing all aspects of our being. It yearns for whole human beings who can embody both strength and compassion, who know instinctively when to give and when to hold back, who understand that their boundaries are as sacred as their ability to love. Beacons of authenticity. As you conclude this message, remember this: you are not here to be perfect. You are not here to achieve an impossible ideal. You are here to be whole, to embrace the totality of who you are, flaws and all. And in that wholeness, in that integration of every facet of your being, you will discover not only the strength to create the life you dream of, but also the wisdom to live it with authenticity and true power. A life aligned with your soul's purpose. The question now isn't whether you are good enough. It isn't a test of your worthiness. The real question is this: are you ready to be truly powerful, ready to embrace your full potential? Not the kind of power that dominates and controls, but the kind that transforms and elevates, that creates and heals. Not the power that fears the shadow and seeks to suppress it, but the one that integrates it and harnesses its energy to create something greater than ourselves, a force for good in the world. If this message resonated within you, if it stirred something in your soul, don't forget to subscribe, activate the notification bell, and share this with someone who desperately needs to hear it, to spread the word of truth and wholeness. Let's embark on this transformative journey together, hand in hand, heart to heart, lighting the way for others. I am large, I contain multitudes, and the multitude is ready to roar.